Okay, here we have Alex Palman from New Zealand, a modern day contemporary hero. He wrote a book about all the hiking and climbing routes on Mount Cook. The last one has been released 20 years ago. So Alex, tell us something about yourself, where are you from and what brings you to Russia?
Well, thank you, Toby. I'm certainly not a hero, but I was very lucky to be asked to write this book. It's a little bit special to me because I grew up in this area. I also enjoy travelling, and so in fact, when I was at school, I remember studying Russia and always dreamed of doing the Trans-Siberian train journey. So finally, after many, many years, I am now here in Moscow, ready to go for my first day on the train tomorrow.
Very good. And can you maybe mention one highlight of the book you wrote?
I think the real highlight for me was reading through all the old stories from climbers from many, many years ago. Many stories which have not been told. I can remember spending hours in libraries just looking for one piece of information, but ended up spending days there reading all these stories from 100 years ago or 50 years ago, that they were the highlights.
So, who was the first one who climbed Mount Cook?
Well, it was a Kiwi team. They were they were under pressure from a very rich Englishman who had a Italian-German guide called Matthias Zurbriggen, and they were making great efforts. But the New Zealand team on Christmas Day in 1894, Clark was one of the party, and there were two others, and they summited and left a sugar bag on the summit in the hope, as proof that they had climbed it, in the hope that it would be seen from other peaks. And so yes, they climbed the North Ridge of Mount Cook.
Very good. When did you reach the summit the first time in your life?
I remember it clearly. It was in 1987, and I climbed with my father and one other friend. I was 17, and it turned out that my father and I were the first father and son team to climb Mount Cook. And I can remember particularly two things. We climbed up the standard easy route called the Linda Glacier, and it was a beautiful full moon light. We didn't even need a koplampa or the headlamp. It was just so bright that the light on the glacier was enough to walk. And I saw a shooting star, and it was so bright, and it was a green color.
So, when was this book released?
This came out in December 2001, so it's a few years ago now. But because it is the only book for the climbs in the area, it tends to have quite a long shelf life. So I imagine there'll be another one in probably 10 years' time.
Okay, so this is of course the most famous mountain of New Zealand, Mount Cook. Do you have any other special tip you could tell our...
Well, two things. Mount Cook is the name that the English gave it after the English explorer, but the Maori have given it the name Aoraki, and this means cloud piercer, because typically there is a layer of cloud and the mountain stands very strongly through the cloud. So Aoraki is the name it also has. And the second point is New Zealand is one place that you must go before you die, because it has a touch of all the geography of the world.
Very good. So what is your first impression about Russia?
Well, it's different to the stereotype that I'd been led to believe. However, things have changed, of course. But my first impression is of a very busy and metropolitan, almost European type city, at least in Moscow, and not as cold as people had led me to believe.
Okay. And you've been so far here in Moscow, and where are your next stops?
Next stop is on the Trans-Siberian Railway, will be Yekaterinburg, and then I go to Irkutsk, which which is on Lake Baikal, and then after that the train continues into Mongolia to Ulaanbaatar and then to Beijing.
And from there on?
Well, I think I'll be returning to Italy to see my wife.
Okay. Send our greetings to your wife and thanks for the interview.